Okay, well, it is 7 o'clock, and I think we've got some good attendance so far. Maybe more people will join us along the way, but I think we will go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and welcome to the Doylestown Democrats Vote Local interview series. I'm Judy Dixon. I'm a committee person with the Doylestown Democrats, and this series was developed based on my own lack of understanding of what local government was really about. I felt that I knew so much more about the national news, but didn't know what was really going on in my own backyard. So together with a group of volunteers from the Doylestown Democrats, we put together this 7-part series. It's Ask Your Local Officials, what is it that you do? We hope you enjoy it. For your information, the video is going to be recorded. The Zoom video is going to be recorded and posted on Zoom at the Doylestown Democrat website. So you'll be able to find it later. As mentioned, it is a 7-part series. So we're going to start geographically with the borough and expand from there. So tonight's the borough. Next Wednesday is the township, where we'll be meeting with township officials. And then the third Wednesday of February, we go out to the county with the county commissioners. And we stay with the counties as we go every third or fourth Wednesday of every month. So we hope that you'll join us through the rest of this series as we go out into interviewing state officials as well. So your roadmap to this evening, you are here. This is your introduction. Shortly, I'm going to be introducing our guest. And then we'll be going to a recorded session with these guests. And Connor O'Hanlon will be asking questions of the guests. You are able to put your questions into chat. And following that recorded session, the guests will be back with us live. So you'll be able to have those questions answered. Bonnie Chang and I will be putting those questions to our guests together. And lastly, we're going to tell you how you can get more involved and get local. So tonight's guests are Doylestown Borough President Ron Strouse and Doylestown Council President Jack O'Connor. Interviewing on the recorded session is Doylestown Democrat President Chairperson Connor O'Hanlon. Connor is going to conduct the interview with us on the recorded session. So a little bit about the Office of the Mayor and the Council President. They really do two distinctly different things. And if you look at the website, you'll be able to see that. The Office of the Mayor is more of a law enforcement and ordinance enforcement position. The Office of the Borough Council President, and the Borough Council itself is more of a legislative or legislative branch. They enact the laws, they determine where to spend your taxes, and they have a variety of committees that work for them. Mayor Ron Strouse has been elected since 2013, so he's been doing this for 8 years. Before becoming mayor, he was a volunteer on a variety of boards throughout Doylestown. He also is a native. He went to high school at Central Bucks. Borough Council President Jack O'Brien has also been a volunteer around town. He's been on Borough Council since 2014 and has been Borough President for the past 3 years. Jack is a retired executive from Lockheed Martin. As a program manager, it seems he's well suited to helping run the Doylestown Borough. So before we get started, we are going to go to our recorded session. Do put your questions into chat and do stay with us for coming back for the live session.
Hello and welcome to the first interview of the Doylestown Democrats Vote Local interview series. Today I'm joined by Mayor Ron Strouse and Borough Council President Jack O'Brien. Ron, would you like to start and tell us about the main functions of the mayor position?
Well, the main functions, frankly, of both of our positions and all those who are elected to Borough Council is to preserve public safety, first and foremost. How we define that is perhaps a little different. So public safety, of course, first and foremost, our police functions come to mind. And so that happens to be our largest function in terms of expenditures on the part of on the part of the borough, and we'll get into the details of that. But then how we define public safety beyond our police functions, for us in Doylestown, that means everything from the quality of our water, coming from the Doylestown Water Department, to our sidewalks, to safety for pedestrians, and to environmental safety. So those functions all in the larger umbrella come under the purview of public safety.
Awesome. Jack, would you be able to tell me about being on the Borough Council?
Yeah, as a member of the Borough Council, I started out, I was running, my brother-in-law was running for state rep, and I had no interest in politics at all. I had been retired for 2 or 3 years, and I volunteered to help work at a polling station for him. And at the same time, one of the local councilmen was stepping down, and I guess they were silently looking for somebody, and they approached me. And as they say, the rest is history. And the thing I found most intriguing about that was that having lived in the borough for 50 years, since I got out of college, I always knew it was a wonderful place to be and live and all that kind of stuff. But I never realized all the little things that went on. So becoming a member of council, they kind of opened the curtain a little bit, and you got to see all of the things that have to happen. And not just the council members themselves, but the staff, and even the business community, how they all kind of work together to bring it together. And it was eye-opening to me. I found it very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of the staff and speaking of the other council members and et cetera, Ron, would you be able to tell me a little bit about the structure of the borough government and how that is made up?
Sure. So we have borough employees, but we also have our police department is a regional department. So our 28 members of the police department are actually employed by the Central Bucks Regional Police Commission. Jack and I both are members of the police commission. And the police commission is made up of 3 municipalities, Chalfont and New Britain, with Doylestown by a significant margin being the largest of those 3. So that is kind of, because it is a regional department, that is, I wouldn't say those police members are part of our borough staff, but they certainly are, through contract, part of our borough staff. Then we have the borough government itself, which I believe, Jack, has 28 employees?
I believe it's 28 employees. Yeah. There's an open position right now. Somebody has left, and right now, due to the COVID situation, we're hesitating to fill that position. So.
And those 28 employees are focused on our parking department, enforcement of parking. Our public works department consists of six members.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
We obviously have finance and the management of the borough itself. So it's a stable employment picture. I don't think it's increased in years. No. Although the functions have increased, but we've economized on that, and we found ways to be more efficient without increasing staff.
And there's one other aspect I think we didn't mention: the water department. It's a relatively small group, but and they rely pretty heavily when a water main breaks. It's all hands on deck to get it fixed. So Public Works supplies a lot of the manpower, but there are a couple of certified water operators that actually go out and do the testing of the wells and all that kind of stuff. So
the water department is really an essential and important function. I mean, there's no denying Doylestown is an older community and has an aging infrastructure for that reason. So we're very conscious that the quality of the water needs to be maintained. The kind of testing we do is beyond the kind of testing that's required by the state and in turn the federal government, because we're conscious of the fact that we have to produce a excellent product for the people who live here.
So obviously we spoke about a lot of the different departments, right? But I think a lot of people will be wondering, what is the actual budget of the borough government? How do you come up with the budget each year, and what does that process look like? Either one of you could take that if you'd like.
I'm going to hold this up here. This is the budget that we just finished adopting for next year. It's made up of a number of components. There's some argument when people say, oh, our budget is $6 million, our budget is $12 million. If you look at all of the component pieces, it's on the order of $11 or $12 million. Typically, though, we talk mostly about the general fund, and that's where we pay for the day-to-day operation of the borough. We have a water fund that we talked about just a moment ago. We have a fire tax fund. We have a road tax fund. I'm trying to think of all the various pieces here, but it's the general fund is on the order of about $6 billion. And out of that comes the money that our contribution to the Central Bucks Regional Police Department is about half of that, maybe even a little bit more than that. So again, as to the mayor's point earlier, the policing is a significant piece of our budget. We also have a reserve fund that was established back in, I think, the mid-90s, when we sold our sewer department to Bucks County Water and Sewer. And at that time, several $1 million was taken out and put in what they called a rate stabilization fund, so that if any rates went up as a result of that sales, it would help to ease the burden across the community. Since that time, we have invested that, and a lot of the returns from that have been used to fund a lot of our capital improvement projects. We've done things like in the Public Works yard, we built a salt bin that allows us to bring bulk salt in and have significant savings on that because we have it on site. We don't have to bring it in as needed. We also converted to solar power down there. And we recently did a study, or we had Johnson Controls come in and look at our operations and make recommendations as to things we can do, converting to LED street lighting, other types of things with the monitoring of the water system. And that was kind of a unique contract in that they made an estimate of what the savings would be, and they kind of guaranteed it that there would be an audit after they were completed, and if they didn't meet these goals, they would reimburse us for the difference. So it was kind of a unique situation. That was done about what, three years ago, I think.
So we're 3 years into that project, and indeed the savings every year more than covers the cost of instituting that project. So I think we may have changed as many as 1,500 streetlights.
We changed every street light in the borough, and including the historic ones. And there was quite a bit of discussion about the color of the light. Would it be appropriate? People were happy. Some people didn't like the LED overhead lights, on the non-historic light. Because they were too bright or too harsh or something like that. So there was some controversy, but like most of those things, it's a blip. It comes up and it comes down. So you work through it.
A portion of the municipal tax bill also goes to both our emergency services, the ambulance services, and a portion also goes to the Doylestown Fire Company. It's a designated portion. Those who are paying tax bills see it on the tax bill as a designated portion of the tax bill every year. We obviously have, as a result of that, and because of the services they provide, we have a close working relationship with both the fire company and the Bucks County Emergency Services.
And this year, we as most everyone knows, we've undertaken a large project on Broad Street with the conversion of the PennDOT building to a new borough hall and police headquarters, and the park in what was their equipment yard. And as a result of that, we knew last year we recognized there was going to have to be a tax increase to pay for that debt service. We took, I think, a $5 million 30-year bond on that. So,
and that actually is represents, besides the need for a new police department, a new physical police department, because our current one is deficient in square footage. Besides that, and the new borough hall, of course, we're building a little more than 3-acre park. That project in total represents a tremendous commitment to the environment in terms of Doylestown Borough. What we took in terms of PennDOT, where the park is, we took a brownfield, removed the contaminated material, and are building a safe public park there. We took a historic building, actually a WPA era building, where Borough Hall and the police department is going to be, and are repurposing that building with environmental standards to serve us going forward. We're also installing charging stations for electric cars as part of that. Actually, you probably know we already have a couple charging stations in the middle of town. I think we were the first municipality in Doylestown to have them, first municipality in the county to have them. And now charging stations are becoming more familiar. And in fact, the new Wawa facility that's being built will have charging stations as part of their construction as well.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention with those first charging stations, they were donated by a business owner in town. So again, that speaks to the community of Doylestown. You know, it's not just the government. Everybody has an opportunity, excuse me, an opportunity to contribute, and they contribute in many ways. So.
And it's a good working relationship when we find that opportunity, because they were donated by a private business. They were actually installed by our public works.
So that actually, it's a nice segue into where we can go with this, is because Doylestown, especially Doylestown Borough, is very, very popular. Well, it is, and people do come and travel, and people come and check out our local shops. So what do you guys think is the intertwining of the business community and the government, and how do you work with the businesses? Does that relationship work, and actually reaching up into the county-wide, because obviously the county government is there as well. So,
well, none of it happens overnight. And when we talk about Doylestown, and it's always great to hear people say, "Do you know how good this town is?" And we do know how good this town is. That doesn't mean there's not more to be done, but we do recognize that. So I mean, we have this extraordinarily long history. We have a considerable inventory of historic buildings and attractive buildings. We have, excuse me, talented individuals who live in the town, who have the human resources, the financial resources also in some cases to help. Of course, we're the county seat. The county is our largest employer. Been the county seat for over 100 years. And then we have, in the business community, a focus on independent businesses for a long, long time. So while not unlike any other place, you'll find some businesses that represent chains, I get that out right. You'll see an emphasis on independent business owners. Now, that provides a great opportunity for individuality. It also provides challenges particularly in times like today, because those independent businesses do not have the corporate structure behind them that can help them weather COVID in a more successful way. So there are significant challenges, and in fact, that probably is to give a long-winded answer to your question. That is an indication of how we work together with our businesses. We recognize that they have challenges. We talk to them about what those challenges are, and to the extent that we're able to financially support them or support them empathetically, we will do that to see them through the crisis and to make sure that we have a strong business environment going forward. So this, for instance, this past year, we engaged in a series of programs to close streets on weekends to help our businesses weather the COVID epidemic. We did it on an experimental basis, and there's no doubt about it, excuse me, that we're going to do it again this year.
I would think so. And in fact, if the weather were better, we'd be doing it right now. Mm-hmm. I think the weather has been a significant impact to the ability to do the outdoor dining, along with some other challenges that came along, like the tearing up of East State Street so that PECO could come in and replace gas lines, you know, and that while the county theater was being revitalized with, you know, that has really put a dent in the ability to get through that section of town. Hopefully, we're coming to the end of that, but.
But we work with the businesses to find the best time to do that. It was an infrastructure improvement that we needed to do. And obviously the best time to do that is this time of year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was the middle of the night, so it didn't impact on the businesses, but the poor people that were trying to sleep in the apartments, Doylestown has I forget the numbers, 40% of the residents are renters, which is kind of unusual. And I think another aspect of Doylestown that sometimes gets forgotten is, for a town this size, a relatively small community of about 4 square miles or so, we have a significant cultural aspect. The Mercer Museum, Fawn Hill, which is technically in the township, but it's completely surrounded on 3 sides by the borough, and Buckingham on the other side. And also the Missioner Museum. So we're very fortunate in that regard too.
But that also that produces an obligation on our part for a small community to sustain these kinds of important cultural institutions. We're proud of them, but we're also obligated to work with them to make sure that they thrive.
So obviously that's a ton about the Doylestown Borough local government and how you guys have worked with the local businesses. And especially in a time like COVID, we've seen how important local government is. I guess I'll go to you with this one, Jack. What made you decide to run for local government? Like, what made you decide that this is what I have to do and this is the way I can make a change happen?
Well, as I had said earlier in my opening remarks, I kind of was enticed into it, if you will. I had been retired for 3 years, and I think my wife was very glad to see me find something to get me out of the house a little bit. But my background, I was an electrical engineer and wound up as a program manager. So I was used to, I had a background, or the talents had been instilled in me to run large programs. When I got involved with the government, I kind of took the role of, I'll just sit back and watch what happens, because learn from your peers, if you will. So I wasn't really active. I was more in learning mode. Very quickly, though, I kind of picked up on it. I think I'm in the last year of my second term, so I'm just starting my 8th year, and I'm seriously considering running again. So that kind of what it was. It was not that I was looking for something to do, but it was an opportunity that came along, and I saw a lot of synergy between my background and what I perceived to be what's involved with government, and it's worked out to be quite enjoyable. That's kind of a word you don't usually hear. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, and I also felt, having lived in the borough for 50 years, and my hours were such that I was very seldom here during the week. I'd leave in the morning about 5:30, 5:45, and get home sometimes at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So it was a long day. So it was an opportunity to give a little bit back to the community that had given so much to me and my family. So that's kind of where it is. That's how I got into it.
Ron, would you like to tell us what made you decide to run for mayor?
I had been serving as the chairman of 2 of the boards of the borough, the Economic Development Advisory Board and our Human Relations Commission. I was actually the Human Relations Commission was created 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, and I was asked to chair it as the founding chairman of that. So I was not looking at running for mayor, and a couple members, including a couple members of Borough Council, called me up and sat down with me and suggested that this would be a good thing to do. I take a lot of pride in Doylestown. I wasn't quite sure that it was a good thing to do, and by the way, Doylestown was in transition then, in terms of the politics of the town. The first time I ran, I won by 73 votes. But I mean, the way we approach Doylestown, the way candidates approach Doylestown varies. Some are motivated by an issue, maybe a personal issue that they've had with the borough or in the borough, or a one particular political issue that motivates them. And others are motivated by to be custodians of the community in which they live, sort of a broader view. Both have a place in terms of public office, local public office, but it is also apparent when you see candidates that they are motivated in different ways.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about very small margins and when we're talking about local elections, right? So that is obviously one reason why it's important to vote in these local elections. But Jack, would you like to expand on why you think it's important to get involved locally and vote locally, which is the whole idea of what we're trying to do here, is instill this this idea of why it's important to vote locally?
Well, I think it was a Tip O'Neill that said all politics is local, and largely the impact that local community, a local government has on the community is much more significant on a day-to-day basis than anything that happens at the state level, or especially at the country level. So it's important. What do people care about? They want to know that they're living in a safe community. They want to know that we're good stewards of that community, whether that means, to Ron's point earlier, we have safe water. I mean, look at what's happening today, as most recently in Flint, Michigan. That's a disaster. The roads are paved, the snow is removed, those kinds of things. Those have a very, probably you don't even think about it because it's so common, but that has a much more major impact on your day-to-day life than anything that happens in Washington or in Harrisburg. Although things that happen in Washington and Harrisburg do have an impact on it. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's not as positive as we'd like it to be. So I think also we have a fiscal responsibility. We talk about Doylestown, and the mayor likes to refer to Greater Doylestown. I always kid him about that. I said, well, are you talking about the borough, the township, or which one of the two zip codes? Everybody identifies as Doylestown. If you look at the car dealers, there's one car dealership that's physically in the borough. There's a couple that are in the township. Most of them are in either Plumstead or Buckingham, but they all refer to themselves as Doylestown. And that carries a certain cachet with it, I think. People want to identify with Doylestown because of its history and its record. So,
and Greater Doylestown, I would never say that in front of a Doylestown Township supervisor.
Well, they're not here. So
there you go. That has been acquired over a period of time. I mean, we have this history. Yes, we're the county seat. That brings part of that cachet to appearance. We're the focus of all sorts of political activity, and this past year we were the focus of 45, maybe 46 rallies and demonstrations for different points of view. And so that is a distinction that we can take pride in, that makes us perhaps a community that has more impact than other communities of our size. And it goes without saying that other communities in Bucks County look to Doylestown as to what we're doing. To the local issues of national importance. We can just look at the environment and all the interests that people have in a better environment. Well, the local impact that we can have in just that area, in terms of stormwater management, in terms of whether and how many trees we plant to help clean our environment locally, in terms of how we manage and require recycling among our trash haulers. All of these things contribute on the bigger scale. Our decision, if the state allows us to restrict single-use plastics, a very local decision that has enormous impact on the national level, or could.
Yeah, and obviously we get to these issues where it talks about the environment, we talk about inclusion, whether that be in diversity, and that comes with the values of our party, and all three of us represent the Democratic Party. So Ron, would you like to tell us why it's important to have a Democrat in your role?
Well, we have democratic values that I think we share. Probably first and foremost, and also timely, is our appreciation and the importance of diversity. We have democratic values in terms of the importance of a clean environment. We have democratic values, from my view, in terms of the need for our economic system to be fair for everyone. That list goes on. But even more basic than that, and more important right now because of the fractured political environment, we have more basic values that we have to find common cause for. We have to identify and find those things that we hold common and that we hold essential as a society and as a community. I don't think that the greater Doylestown has the polarization that the rest of the country does, but there certainly is polarization here. And we have to find effective ways to communicate with each other and build on those values. Those values, they may translate into legislation. We're always going to have differences in legislation, and that's healthy, that's good. But we've moved away from those differences into something more basic, where frankly the other party doesn't participate so much in different solutions to the same problems, but I'll be very honest, to no solutions or not even a recognition of the problem as being such.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously are living in very divisive times, and after this 2020 election, we do have these 2021 elections, and in the future, we'll have 2023, et cetera, and these local elections that hopefully we can come together and recognize that unifying American, I guess, unity, or the commonality that we all have. So Jack, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Ron on this one. This is my final question for you guys. If people want to get more involved with the Doylestown Borough local government, what should they do?
There's a lot of opportunities. In fact, we just went through a round of, I chair what we call the Personnel Committee, which meets on an as-needed basis, looking for interviewing candidates for positions on some of the boards and commissions that we have. I don't know the exact number, but there's probably a dozen different boards and commissions. Fannie Chapman Pool, which has been around for forever. We just interviewed and appointed two new members to it. One was appointed in December, one will be appointed in January due to a resignation. The Economic Advisory Council, we just had 2 or 3 people interview for those positions. So there are opportunities, and it's a good way to kind of put your toe in the water a little bit, get a sense of what local government is all about. And maybe see something that you want to get more involved with, and something. We're very fortunate in that a lot of our the Environmental Advisory Council, we have a lot of expertise on here that if we had to go out and pay someone to provide that expertise, I don't know that we could afford it without significant impact to our budgets. But yet we have these people who are community members that are volunteering their time to do that. So that, in my mind, that would be the opportunity for somebody to get involved. And also there's local political organizations like the local Democratic organization and stuff. That's another opportunity that exposes you to some of the things that are going on. So.
Yeah, I think, as Jack indicated, among those boards and commissions, there are more than 100 volunteers involved in those. And then on each of them, there's an opportunity for a junior volunteer, for someone that's in high school, I think a sophomore or above. And so there's a position on each of those. Shade Tree. Shade Tree is, that's something we're very excited about. We have inventoried all of the borough trees the trees that are in our right of way and in our parks and so forth, so that we can be custodians of them, so that we can, the inventory shows their age and their health and the size and obviously what kind of tree it is. And so that going forward, we can be better custodians of those trees that we have. So Shade Tree is integral to that, and Shade Tree has an opportunity for a high school student to be a partner on that, as does our Borough Council has an opportunity for a junior council person, and the other boards and commissions. So it's really not just an opportunity for adults, but also an opportunity for young people to learn about local government and participate in the kind of decisions we make.
Awesome. Well, that's all I have for you guys. So I want to thank you guys for watching this, and I want to thank both Mayor Ron Strouse and Borough Council President Jack O'Brien for joining us today. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out our website through the description box below. I want to thank Koru Real Wellness and Colin for hosting us today and recording us here in his studio in Greater Doylestown. So, but you can sign up for future Zoom events in that description box below as well through that link to our website. So thank you guys both again, and I hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Well, welcome back to the live portion of tonight's event. Thank you, Mayor Strouse and Council President O'Brien. You whet our appetite in giving us a very good flavor of the workings of the borough government and many of the accomplishments. And we're very, very proud to hear all the wonderful things you've been doing. Now we will use the live Q&A portion to conduct some follow-up questions from the interview. We will incorporate some of the questions we have received from the attendees in advance. And also, we've been monitoring the real-time chat box. So we will try to answer as many or pose as many questions as we can, and apologize in advance if we don't get to all of them, because we have 20 minutes and we have a lot of questions. However, I know if we don't get to their questions, the good news is that everybody knows how to reach Mayor Ron Strouse, and they see Jack O'Brien a lot. So you two are both extremely accessible and wonderfully responsive. So if we don't get to ask those questions today, I'm sure we will run into you on the streets or in your office, and we can ask those questions with you directly. We hope to keep the answers from the two of you to 2 minutes or less, so that we can have more questions in the limited time slot that we have. And Judy and I will post the last question at 7:50. The first question I wanted to ask actually both of you is that, what do you foresee are the challenges facing Doylestown Borough? I mean, what are your top priorities for 2021? We know you just weathered through COVID, balancing COVID with the economy. You're balancing the business and the residential community. You may be trying to figure out potential budget shortfall. So there are a lot of things I'm sure you are dealing with. So if you can share some of that with us tonight. How about we go with you first, Mayor?
Well, I'm glad you put them as challenges rather than problems, because that's sort of how I view them in terms of how we approach them in the community. And obviously 2021 is going to be a year of recovery in so very, very many ways. One of the things you might observe in terms of Doylestown is that we have a tremendous amount of projects being planned on the planning boards or actually underway. We actually, as we've experienced COVID, we actually have had, I believe, 4 new restaurants open during this past year, in spite of the challenges of COVID. But at the same time that is happening, that kind of growth and development is happening, we certainly have had a lot of damage done to our existing businesses, our independent businesses, what I talked about, businesses that don't necessarily have a corporate background backing them up. So they've had tremendous stress and continue to, particularly right now. But so have our cultural institutions, and so have our are nonprofits that provide social services. So when you look at our cultural institutions, whether it be the museums or the county theater, besides being closed or on restricted levels of operation, they haven't been able to engage in the normal ways that they would do fundraising, the kinds of events that they might have had. And as a result, they're not going to be able to do that for a period of time. We know that in 2021. So they may actually experience some real structural damage that will take a long, long time for them to recover from. And that's going to have to be one of our focuses. Our obligations are not just to run a fiduciarily sound government and a government that is effective, but it's also to be a catalyst for all these organizations that we have. And then one other thing is the social service organizations, those nonprofits. Again, they haven't been able to do the same level of fundraising, but then the demand for their services have increased tremendously, whether it be a woman's place that has a shop in Doylestown and has a very active presence in terms of their services in our community, or whether it be our food pantries. And then there are a whole host of others as well. So as we work through 2021, we're going to be cognizant of the fact that there's going to be development, there's going to be financial activities or economic activity. It looks like we're very vibrant, but we're going to have to pay attention to all these other organizations to see that they're part of that vibrance going forward. And I'll try to keep it to shorter than 2 minutes next time.
Thank you. How about Jack? What do you think?
I thought I yielded my 2 minutes to the mayor, but I'll give it a shot. One of the things we did, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is with the governor's declaration of the state of emergency, we were able to make provisions by, I don't want to use the word bypassing, but by allowing the use of public spaces for some of the restaurants. We had outdoor dining on the streets, in parking spots. We had curbside pickup, and we also had some places where they actually put tables out on the sidewalks. So we were trying to be responsive to the needs of the community, and at the same time be responsive to the public safety aspect of that. So that there's been a lot of give and take. In fact, now that wintertime is here, the likelihood of outdoor dining has kind of diminished. We are looking for opportunities where maybe we can continue to support those businesses in some fashion. And another aspect of that is, if you look at the county theater, they had planned to take much longer to do their updates to the building, but they made a decision because of the impact of COVID on them that they accelerated their stuff. And my understanding is they're on schedule for completion sometime like the end of February, early part of March. And that's a significant improvement over what their original schedule was.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jack. My second question actually is directed at you, Jack. There clearly growth in the borough, population-wise and demographic changes. It's being a very desirable place to live. As a result, housing pressure, right? So could you address some of the current development proposals in front of the council?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because there's been quite a bit written in the local news media about it. We have certainly the Intel property has been one that's been talked about quite a bit. The Calkins family has come and worked with the borough staff to propose, develop their concept of what that would look like. It's a mix of residential and commercial space with a high-rise residential building in the back. They've gone through a couple of different iterations of that. My understanding is they will be coming back to the borough with a revised plan, probably in the February-March timeframe. There are also, excuse me, there are also developments proposed at, I can't remember the exact address, but the Dairy Queen building is being, in fact, the demolition started today. where they're going to be putting in a bank. And at the rear of that property, my understanding is that's going to be a CHOP urgent care facility type of thing that will have access via Atkins Drive. And across the street from that, kind of next to the gas station, there's a development proposed for, I forget the number of units, but it would be units with indoor parking that would extend from North Main Street through to North Street. It's kind of next to the Modern Cleaners, if you know where that is. That same developer is also proposing on the corner of Main and Union. There's an office building. They're proposing to putting, I think, 8 units in there. Some of them are single family, some of them are condos, reusing the existing building. And in fact, tomorrow night, there's a joint planning commission meeting scheduled between the township and the borough for, I think it's 280 North Broad Street. I can't remember the exact, it's the old Tilly building. The front of that is planned to be commercial with some residential above it. The back of that property, which is in the township and is completely landlocked, the access has to be via the front one. So when that was proposed to the township, it was decided that because they can't get access without the permission of the borough, that's going to be a joint meeting tomorrow night. So there's a lot of things going on. There was also one that was proposed, and I don't know what the status of it is right now, in the, I call it the Acme Shopping Center, where the old Bonton building, they were proposing, and I think that their idea came from what was being proposed at the Intel building to build a high-rise residential unit there. My understanding is that's a very common approach to some of these strip malls where the business model has changed a little bit. So they're looking for opportunity there. That's a very long-winded answer to a very simple question, but.
Oh, not at all. Actually, I appreciate you spending time to explain to us all these projects. Just a quick question to follow up. So how many net additional units you think a borough like ours need to have every year to keep up with the demand?
That's a tough question. As we said earlier, I think it's somewhere around 40% of the people who live in the borough are renters. And a lot of these units we're talking about is really going to add to the number of people renting. There are very few that are going to be on the market for purchase.
Okay.
There might be 1 or 2 in those units on North Main Street. The rest of them are going to be either rentals or perhaps condos or something like that. I don't know the answer to that question. Ron, do you have any idea?
So some of this is responsive to the desire for people that want to move into the borough. So for instance, a couple of these developments will be geared toward millennials. And that comes from their desire to be in the borough. And by the way, once they're here, they also have a desire for certain services that might be different than we've provided in the past. A couple of those projects are to empty nesters who want to be in a community where they can walk to restaurants, walk to a grocery store, and walk to the county theater, to the movie theater, and so forth.
Okay. All right, great. So I'm going to shift gear a little bit. I'm going to ask.
Well, I do have one follow-up question. There was a question that came over in regards to the zoning and the new properties being proposed. Frank sent us an email, and I was wondering if you had, Jack, if you had a position on whether those developments should be accepted or not, and what the process was like to determine if we want to move forward with those.
Well, I think the answer to that has a lot of different aspects of it. Number one, there was a study done, an update to the comprehensive plan that identified the Broad Street corridor as an area where it had typically been industrial, and that has gone away. And we've tried to recognize that And I think it was back in the 97 or 2000 timeframe that they talked in there about opportunities for improving, making Broad Street a gateway into the borough. And that is complicated by a couple of things. Number one, Broad Street is part of it. On one side, it's all borough, all the way out to 611. And on the other side, once you get past the storage place, the other side is township. So we're kind of faced with having to do some I won't say negotiation, but we have to get our heads together in terms of what that means. We certainly started work there.
Okay.
In terms of the conversion of the PennDOT facility into the new Borough Hall Police Headquarters and the park. And I think the conversion of the Intel property is a step in the right direction in terms of implementing that plan.
So
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm looking at the clock and it's like 7:50 already. So we can only ask you one more question, which is crazy because there's so many questions we want to ask you folks. But this one I actually wanted to ask Mayor Strouse, because you and I have been talking a little bit about the police. And I personally was very surprised, and I don't know if the fellow attendees were also equally surprised that the police is such a big ticket item in our general fund, right? And so as you talked about, we are, lots of people, lots of townships look to Doylestown as a leader, local solutions for national issues, right? So we, this whole summer we had so many Black Lives Matter rallies in Doylestown. So I was curious in terms of the expenditure we put on the police force, and are we following the norm, the national norm, that the police is a catch-all, like any 911 calls goes to the police? There's a lot of questions about people who are homeless, people who have mental issues, and we are using the police force to deal with all that. And is that the best way to use our limited resources? If we can, otherwise we'll continue to see the police budget grow, right? Because every year they have, more salary, we have bigger pension obligations and what have you. And I know you've been thinking long and hard about how to have the police force better. So if you could help with that. Oops.
I think he's from.
I think he's frozen.
Here.
Police budgets as a portion of their budget. Yeah, are we good?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the police budget as a portion of budgets throughout Bucks County can approach almost 50% of the municipality's budget. Partly in response to that, and then in response to wanting to have a more a police department that was more technologically current and trained more effectively. We engaged a few years ago in a regional department with New Britain and Chalfont. We each have an equal say, although Doylestown Borough actually pays, it's a complicated formula, but we pay 61% of that budget. So it still represents the largest, by far, the largest line item but have a department commission that actually is responsible for that department. Jack and I are the Doylestown representatives on the police department, and Noni West is the alternate. We have been able to institute a lot of reforms, a lot of what I consider progressive policies regarding policing that frankly a lot of other departments have not been able to do. We also happen to have a police foundation apart from the department. That's a nonprofit which I chair, which raises money to do some creative police functions that maybe aren't.
Uh-oh, Ron's frozen again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Probably
Let me try and fill in for him in what I think he was trying to say. The Police Foundation is
Police,
Oops.
sort of de-escalating situations. We have provide training in terms of diversity. We were the first department outside of cameras. We've recently instituted a canine program and have 2 dogs on the street. We've been the recipient of lots of grants that make us, frankly, the envy of other departments. We have just started implementing a 3-year grant that provides contact and counseling for the victims of crime. And then we were able to, with that grant, hire 2 people who have a background in that work. Yes, we do expect our police to engage in what we might otherwise describe as social services. And we need to do that as a smaller community. That doesn't mean they take the place of organizations that provide those social services, but they network with them to provide that kind of help, so that if someone, and report is made to the police department, that they know very well how to deal with that situation and how to get that homeless person in touch with the kinds of services that will help them. They don't provide those services, but they do provide that kind of segue. Does that kind of answer your question, Bonnie? Or
I'm sure we can talk about this for hours, but I think we're probably out of time. So, but thank you, Mayor, and also thank you, Council President O'Brien, not just for being here tonight, but for the work you're doing to make Doylestown actually the envy of everyone. And we're like one of the best places to live in Pennsylvania. So thank you for your public service. And so, Judy, back to you.
Yes, okay. So hopefully you've learned a lot more about the borough as we've answered your questions. And now you can, there should be a slide for us to show you how you can get a little more involved. Okay. So yeah, so we wanted to answer your question. The whole purpose of this was to, what exactly does the borough and the council president do? And now you know. So how can you get to know more? Well, you can volunteer at one of the committees that are listed here. Whether you're in Doylestown Borough, Doylestown Township, or another municipality, all county government, local government has committees that you can join. The other thing you can do, and I highly recommend, is that you go to a Democratic committee meeting. Right here, the Doylestown Democrats, we meet the first Monday of every month. But if you go to Bucks County Democratic Party, if you go to their website, there's a calendar on there, and it will tell you about the various committee meetings across Bucks County. And lastly, you can vote. Voting is so easy, and we always have elections coming up. This year, there is a primary on May 18th for judges for the Court of Common Pleas, for the DA, and other municipal offices. You don't know anything about those offices? Well, if you go to a Democratic committee meeting, you'll actually network with a lot of the candidates that are vying to run for office. So in the primary, we'll pick our Democratic challenger, and whoever wins will face off the Republican in November. So special thanks to our guests, Ron Strouse and Jack O'Brien. We very much appreciate you being here with us. And special thanks to the Doylestown Democrats for giving us the funding to get this off the ground. And to all of you who have donated, we very much appreciate it. An extra special thanks to the team. We've worked hard to put this together. Bonnie Chang, Jeff Cogskull, Kevin Green, Connor O'Hanlon, Jenny Ryan, Noni West, Carl Herring, and Karen Forbes. Thank you all for doing this.
We see
and
them.
Our next interview is next week with the Doylestown Township Supervisors. It's a week from today, so you can sign up this weekend at the Doylestown Township, at the Doylestown Democrat website. Next slide. And there it is, doylestown.democrats.com. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You will be receiving a survey, so I hope you fill it out in your email. Thanks everyone for joining us. Bye-bye.